Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Blackjack. Today, as always, I'll be doing a YouTube comment section deck tech for you guys. If you're interested in having me put a deck together for you, I'm looking for any of the 5 metrics in the comment section. A bracket, a budget, a theme, a commander, and any pet cards you might have. Today, we have a request from the user Blair Twitch Project who needed help working on his dragon deck, his Miirym deck. This is what he sent me, subpar dragons. So I'm going to kind of give you guys a look behind the scenes into how I would change a deck, how I would fix a deck up. The first thing I took a look at was the lands. It's almost always the first thing I look at when I build a deck or I fix a deck is I look at the lands and I build up from there. First thing I noticed is a lot of come into play tapped lands. Obviously, this is probably a budget restriction, and I totally respect that, but in my list, I did completely reduce, not completely, but significantly reduce the number of tap lands. Things like City of Brass, I don't think are necessary in a 3-color deck. I don't like fetch lands that get basics, especially in a multicolored deck, so I cut a lot of that. And a lot more of these tap lands, Rimewood Falls, all these temples. Again, I think on a budget these things can be fine, but just to give you guys an idea of what I changed, first of all, I did go down to 37 lands. Even when you're looking at a high-costed commander like Miirym, I think it's important to stay consistent around 37. That way you're not drawing too many over the course of the game. We went to 3 of each basic type, so as I've said multiple times, I like to play usually around 3 of each basic. And then I just went in, I added all of the dragon lands. I think there's like 4 of them. There's Crucible, Haven, Maelstrom. There might have been one other that I did not add. Terror of the Peaks. I know this is an expensive card, but it is probably like one of the best dragons there is, so if you can afford it, this is something I would find room for. But overall, I gave the land base a strict upgrade. I will say, when you're looking at a land base, I've said this multiple times, do your best and build up from there. However, when you're looking to upgrade, you need to keep in mind that any sort of an upgrade is typically going to involve investing more money. There are channels and there are ways that showcase investing the same amount or even less, but changing. I would say when I fixed this Miirym deck up, I built it in such a way that I would be happy to play it, and this is the deck that I would build. So the budget restriction, you know, we're looking at 464 versus 290. It did go up significantly, but I think that most of that is in the land base. So if you want to find more ways around, if you want to cut fetch lands and you want to cut shock lands, Ketria Triome, I think that would probably save you a ton of money and bring you back into the low 3s. But I also think that when you're looking at a deck that is very mana hungry, dragons are going to cost a lot of mana, you do need to be more willing to at least invest in lands that come into play untapped, even if they're not going to be fetches or shock lands. That being said, enchantments, I liked pretty much everything here aside from Dracogenesis. I think the one big difference I noticed between his list and mine is I don't want to commit so many dragons to the board. I think that a deck like this is going to be really effective at playing your commander and then maybe playing one more dragon. And that should be enough to demand a board wipe on its own. I think the moment that in Miirym you are investing 3 or more dragons, you are playing into a board wipe so much so that if it happens one time, you are completely out of the game. In a deck like Miirym, if I were to play it, I would be looking to invest 1, maybe 2 dragons out on the battlefield as long as they were drawing me cards as I was investing them. And that would be enough to demand a board wipe or win the game on its own, and I would protect what that was and what that is. But beyond that, I added a bunch of card draw. Temur Ascendancy for haste and card draw, Up the Beanstalk for card draw, Kindred Discovery, Garruk's Uprising, Elemental Bond, Colossal Majesty. All of these are going to be consistent ways for us to draw cards. So that way, not only are we investing less, but all of the cards that we are investing are actually netting us, or at least going even, by getting us cards back. Dragon Tempest is an amazing card. Whenever a creature with flying enters, it gains haste. Whenever a dragon enters, it deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of dragons you control. Even if you're only investing one other dragon, Miirym's going to copy that, and you're going to get 3 dragons total. Being able to throw 3 damage anywhere you want consistently for a 2-mana enchantment is amazing. Defense of the Heart is my one way of cheating creatures out. In my version of the deck, I think Dracogenesis is so expensive that Defense of the Heart is less than half the mana cost, and it pretty much does the same thing. Dracogenesis, if you get it out and you have 4 or 5 dragons in your hand, it should win you the game. This, at 4 mana, should also win you the game or put you in a position to win the game, but is much less of an investment on the cost. Looking at artifacts, playing a lot of the talismans, Quicksilver Amulet, a lot of the signets. I decided to again invest in what makes stuff cheaper. So Herald's Horn, Urza's Incubator are both going to be ways of making our dragons cheaper, and then Herald's Horn nets us a tiny bit of advantage. Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots, again, once you get these dragons out, if you have 2 or 3, they should be enough to win the game, and all that matters is protecting them. So instead of investing in all of these mana rocks and these abilities to cheat more creatures into play, I'm looking at getting a couple creatures out and protecting them the best that I can. So not only does that end up being cheaper in mana cost, because I'm investing 2 mana and then 1 to equip it, or 2 mana and then 0 to equip it, but I'm a lot less likely to get shut out by a board wipe. Instants, so Beast Within, do not like the card. Rabbit Hybridization, don't like the card. Ricochet Trap, don't like the card either. These are all ways of dealing with one thing, one spell, or one permanent. I want to invest in things that can deal with more of my problems. So Spit Flame I put in here because it's just awesome for flavor and can deal damage to a creature. You can buy it back. And then, oh, Rapid Hybridization snuck its way back into here. How did it happen? Oh boy. Well, I guess it's going to make the final cut. I would play Terror of the Peaks over Rapid Hybridization when it comes time. This completely slipped my mind. I apologize. But Arcane Denial, Counterspell, Heroic Intervention, Negate, and Silumgar Scorn are all here for one purpose. We invest our 3 dragons, and then we protect them from board wipes. So it looked like we had 2 ways of doing that before, kind of 2.5 with Ricochet Trap. These are all just better than Ricochet Trap because they can counter more than a one-off. You don't care if you lose 1 dragon, you care if you lose them all. And then when we're looking at our own board wipes, Magmaquake and Colossus Will both are cheap and effective because they deal damage to creatures without flying. Excuse me. So Colossus Will can deal damage to creatures without flying, and if you control your commander, you can also hit a bunch of artifacts and enchantments, but both of these are going to be one-sided board wipes that allow us to keep our board and get rid of other people's. Raise the Palisade is going to be the 3rd version of that. So we have 3 ways of actually completely wiping the board, but protecting our entire board at the same time. We do have the same ramp package, so the same 10 pieces that we have in every base green deck that I like to build. Cultivate, Farseek, Kodama's Reach, Nature's Lore, Rampant Growth, 3 Visits, Sakura Tribe Elder, Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, and Soul Ring. 10 up, 10 down, always staying consistent. This deck did put a Mox Jasper in. Obviously, if you have one, go ahead and play it. It is cool. It is on theme. Totally okay to be your secret 11th piece. Beyond that, all I'm playing is the Raise the Palisade. I ended up cutting River's Rebuke. Raise the Palisade is just infinitely better than this card. And then again, 8 mana, and what is this? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. When I'm casting a spell, that's going to cost 6 or more mana in my commander decks. I'm expecting them to have a massive impact on the game and probably warp the game around them. And normally I want them to be around 6 mana, 7 at the very maximum. These cards are more reasons to overindulge, I guess I'll say. Genesis Ultimatum puts too many permanents onto the battlefield and leaves you too open to a board wipe. And Last March of the Ents is not necessary because we're already adding so much value and card draw via our enchantments that instead of investing 8 mana into a one-off card draw, we can invest 3 into like a Garruk's Uprising or a Colossal Majesty. Finally, the creatures. So I cut pretty much all of the non-dragons. Universal Automaton's not necessary. Tatiova shouldn't be here. Thrakis the Butcher, again, it's a cool card, but for 5 mana you're getting a 3/4 with trample that doesn't even fly. Not good enough for me. Tireless Provisioner, not necessary. Titan is another card draw, but one, it's not a dragon, and well, I guess you can name dragons and it would be a dragon, but the most important part is it's not costing 3 mana. I would rather have an enchantment that does this than a creature that's much more susceptible to being removed. Smoldering Egg, Sprite Dragon, Skanos, Scion, I cut all of these. I don't think any of these are good enough. Scion is only going to get down to 6 mana, and 6 mana 4/4 is not good enough for me. Red Dragon, 6 mana deal 4 wasn't good enough. What else? Ganax, we made an upgrade to. Bloom Tender, we cut. This is the package that I'm going with. So I have 24 creatures and you have 30. I think cutting that down and again being less intensive on committing to the board and more of a commit one thing, protect it, I think is going to lead to more wins and more consistency with this deck. So I kept some of your creatures. I did add Balefire Dragon. I know he's a little bit more expensive, but it is a board wipe over and over. Broodcaller Scourge allows you to put stuff into play for free, and it can be permanents, so you do not have to commit creatures. You can put an enchantment or an artifact out. Dragonlord Servant and Shaman make your dragons cheaper. Drakasith can deal damage. A lot of these dragons I was pretty cool with keeping. I added Goldspan over yours that made mana. Goldspan over Ganax. Cloth is an amazing way of generating a ton of mana. Again, I know the dragons that I'm adding are around like the $10 price point, but to be honest, when you're playing a dragon deck, if you want it to be powerful, that is kind of the barrier to entry. A lot of the better dragons these days are between that like $5 to $15 mark, and it's for good reason. Being able to generate enough mana to cast an entire new spell after you've committed 7 is pretty insane. I left this one in here. Dealing damage is pretty interesting, plus it had flying. The Niv Mizzets are good. Casting your dragons with flash is awesome. Savage Ventmaw is another cool way of generating mana. Scourge is a cheap Terror of the Peaks that deals damage. This should absolutely be in your deck. Transcendent is a counter spell, which is cool. And then finally I added 2 Planeswalkers, Kiora for more consistent card draw, and then Sarkhan for card draw and then being able to create dragons. If you ever get to the final thing where you get to ultimate, searching your library for all of your dragons, putting them onto play, and just winning the game in one shot is going to be super awesome. Again, I think obviously this is much more expensive. If you change around the mana base a little bit, cut the fetches, cut the shocks, and just put in cheap untapped lands, I think you can get this down to, you know, maybe plus 60, 70 bucks over your original build, and it's going to come out much more consistent, win a lot more games, and I think you're going to have a lot more fun with it. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, Godspeed.